So, class, I remember last week I talked about advantage of public debt. I've talked about the factor responsible for public debt. I've talked about the problems of public debt. So, where we are going to start this night, we are going to start on concept of debt restructuring. We are going to start on concept of debt restructuring. What is debt restructuring? Debt restructuring is a mechanism for reducing a country debt burden. Debt restructuring is a mechanism for reducing a country debt burden through such through different strategies. One of the strategies of debt restructuring, number one, is debt refinancing. Debt refinancing. What is debt refinancing? Debt refinancing simply means procuring a new loan on a more concessional term to repay an existing loan. What does that mean? You collect a loan of 20 billion, 20 million naira at the rate of interest of 20% per annum. You now see another financial institution now approach you after 2 years of collecting the loan. They now say they can give you the same amount, 20 million naira, but the rate of interest will be at 8%. You can do debt refinancing by getting that new loan. When you get the new loan, you will use it to pay off that existing loan. Because that existing loan, the concession is very strenuous. It's very strict in a sense that the interest on that existing loan is very high. It's going to be is too costly. It's going to cost you more. So, in order to save costs, you can procure a new loan that have a lower interest to repay an existing loan that has higher interest. It's a means of debt restructuring. Another one is debt rescheduling. Debt rescheduling. What is meaning of debt rescheduling? Debt rescheduling means you are changing the maturity structure of a loan. You procure a loan that have a short repayment period. You can reschedule to extend the repayment period. Maybe initially, the repayment period of that loan is 10 years. So you can do debt rescheduling by rescheduling the loan to cover a longer repayment period, which will be like 20 years. The advantage of debt rescheduling is that it will give you it will ensure that you plan your repayment structure very well. What you are going to be paying every year will be so lean that it will not affect your working capital. So that is debt rescheduling. That is debt rescheduling. You are changing the maturity structure of the loan from shorter repayment period to a longer repayment period. Before you can reschedule a debt, there are some principles of debt rescheduling under public sector accounting. Most especially, debt rescheduling normally apply to external loan. Debt rescheduling normally apply to external loan. It normally apply to external loan in a sense that most of the external loan that are procured from Paris Club of Creditors, which are located in France, They normally do debt rescheduling for them. So for public debts, if you want to do a debt rescheduling, there are some principles that you need to follow. Number one is principles of imminent defaults. Principles of imminent default. That is the A, principles of debt rescheduling. What that one means is that these principles apply to debtors' country, and it requires that debtors, the person that borrowed the public debt, the country that borrowed the public debt, can prove that they are not able to repay back based on the number of years given to them. Do you understand? So they can prove. Imminent default means that debtor country has the valid evidence to require for rescheduling of the debt due to their inability to repay the debt. They are not able to meet the external debt service as at when due. So they are not able to meet the external debt service at when due. They are not able to pay the debt as at when due. So that is principles of imminent default. Another principles of debt rescheduling is burden sharing. Principles of burden sharing. These principles of burden sharing apply to the creditors' country, the creditors, such as IMF, Paris Club, London Club, all those international financial institutions, they are the creditors. It applies to them. It requires that the creditor to prepare to share fair and equitable the burden of rescheduling in the proportion of their individual exposure to debtors' countries. What this one is meaning is that for you to do a debt rescheduling, burden sharing means that the creditors must be able to carry the burden. You need to consider the debt creditors too. If you debtors country, your country is a debtor, you now apply for debt rescheduling. You need to consider the creditors too. Does the creditor has the abilities to reschedule the debt? Is it not going to affect the creditors too in the long run? So the burden of that debt, the debt rescheduling must be fair and equitable between creditors, countries, and debtors, countries. So that is principles of burden sharing. Another principles of debt rescheduling is principles of conditionality. Principles of conditionality. This principle, which is generally regarded as the golden rule of Paris Club of Creditors, also apply to debtors' country. It requires that the debtors' nation must put in place an IMF structural adjustment program. Apply for debt rescheduling. IMF mandate them to do a structural adjustment program. One of the example of such a structural adjustment program embarked upon by Nigeria, I think in 1979, was Operation Feed the Nation, OFN, Operation Feed the Nation. So is the purpose of this structural adjustment program is the debtors must come up with a policy that is going to benefit the citizen within the debtors' countries. So the essence of that structural adjustment program is that to ensure that we have enough food at a least cost within the country. Operation Feed the Nation is one of the structural adjustment program mandated by IMF that Nigeria must embark on before they can reschedule their loan. So those are the principles of debt rescheduling. Number one principles of debt rescheduling is principles of eminent defaults. While number two is principles of burden sharing. While number three is principles of conditionality. Like I said, our our theme of discussion was debt restructuring. And I said debt restructuring have different strategies. Number one is debt refinancing, which I've explained that, while number two is debt rescheduling. So I've explained that too. So let's go to number three, which is debt conversion. Debt conversion. Debt conversion is otherwise called debt conversion program, DCP. Debt conversion is one of the debt restructuring techniques. It is a system by which a country with excessive debt exchange part of their debt obligations. It is a system by which a country with excessive debt exchange part of their debt obligations. When you are exchanging your debt for another consideration, valuable consideration, that one is called debt conversion. You are converting your debt to another value. Yeah, you are changing your debt to another value. It's a debt conversion. Number one debt conversion program that we have. Debt conversion is otherwise called debt swap. Debt conversion is also otherwise called debt swap. It simply means the system of exchanging government debt obligation for another valuable considerations. So that is what debt conversion simply means. So there are different forms of debt conversion or debt conversion program. One of them is called debt for equity swap. One of them is called debt for equity swap. For this one, this debt for equity swap, what this one means is that a country that is owing a debt, take for instance Nigeria, they went to China to collect debt from Chinese government. That debt collected from Chinese government can be converted to equity, in a sense that if Nigeria used the debt to do a revenue generating program like railway system, that railway system, by the time they finish it, government will commercialize it. If government commercialize it, it become a profit-making venture. If it's now a profit-making venture, they will invite Chinese government to come and participate in running of the project. So as a result of that, Chinese government too will have an equity on that railway project. So they have converted their debt to equity. At the end of the year, they will not be sharing profit. Chinese government will not be asking Nigeria to come and pay the debt again because they have converted the debt into equity. They are now becoming shareholder of that project. So that is for debt equity swap. Another one that we have is debt for cash. Debt for cash simply means when a country collect a debt, that time they are experiencing a lot of financial difficulty. 3 years after, that country now have excess reserve. They have enough money. Before the expiration of the debt, they can buy off the debt. They can pay off the debt. Therefore, cash simply means you are bringing cash so that you pay off the debt completely, so that debt obligation will not be on, because you have enough unused cash with you, enough reserve with you, which is not utilized, and you say you are owing a debt. Because when you are owing that debt, every year you'll be paying interest. Instead of you paying the interest, you can quickly liquidate the debt by paying off the cash so that you pay off the debt. There will not be accumulated interest again. So that is debt for cash. Another one is debt for debt. Debt for debt. Debt for debt. Debt for debt. What do we mean by debt for debt? Your debt obligation is exchanged with another debt obligation. Nigeria, for example, Nigeria government, they are owing IMF a foreign debt, an external debt. Nigeria government can write a letter to IMF that IMF, we too, we have somebody owing us. Every year, the amount that we supposed to be paying you, our debtor that is owing us will be the one to be paying on our behalf. How does it happen? Most of the multinational companies that operate in Nigeria, Chevron, Shell, Mobil, at the end of the year, they will be paying tax to government. That tax to government is a debt to them, to government. They are owing government. So when they want to pay their tax, assuming they want to pay in dollar, they will not pay Nigeria government. Rather, they will go and pay IMF. So for paying IMF, they are paying the debt of Nigeria government. So that is debt for debt obligation, debt for debt swap. You are using your own debt to exchange another debt. Somebody is owing you. You two are owing another person. So you can write a letter to the person you are owing that the person that is owing me will be the one that will be paying every year or every month. So that is debt for debt swap. So do we understand?
Yes, please. Let's see.
Okay. So the last one is the last type or forms of debt conversion that we have is debt for exports. Debt for exports. Debt for exports swap. In this case, a country exchanges debt obligation with the proceed of its export or with its natural resources, with the proceed of its export or with its natural resources or mineral resources. Debt for export swap means Nigeria, they have a foreign debt. So they now write a letter to their creditors that our creditors, instead of us paying every year dollar, no, we'll not be paying in dollar, we'll not be paying in form of monetary value. come, we'll be using our natural resources like crude oil to pay you, or our mineral resources, gold, mining, to pay you back your debt, so that there won't be outflow of cash or capital flights in the economy. We will not be looking for dollar to pay you like we have now. Look at the rate of exchange. Look at the rate of naira to a dollar. It's because the demand for dollar is too high in Nigeria now. How does the demand for dollar high? Most of what we consume is imported. So, and the importations, the the demand for dollar through importation is very high. Secondly, the number of Nigeria going to foreign country for tourism, for medical, for education is increasing day by day. So the pressure on naira the pressure on dollar is so high to the extent that it's affecting naira. So if drastic measure is not taken, maybe before the end of the year, we may see that $1 is about 3,000 naira, because we have never experienced since independent. Nigeria have never experienced the rate of increase of naira to dollar to what we are experiencing now. So government need to put a control or check up in place to ensure that this is minimized. One of the means is by ensuring that we have more exportation. By exporting, there will be more dollar in the country, because our exports, we will sell our exports through dollar. So we bring back the dollar to the countries. Do you understand? So secondly, if we produce locally, most of what we are exporting, most of what we are importing, if we are producing them locally, the demand for dollar will reduce. If we have good hospitals, if we have good education, it will reduce. So government need to work on that. So therefore, export swap simply means you are exchanging your debt obligations with natural resources, such as crude oil, mineral, gold and mining, etc. So that is different type of debt conversion program. Now let's look at objective of debt conversion program. What objective do we derive from debt conversion program? What objective can we derive from debt conversion program? Number one objective of a debt conversion program is reduction of Nigeria external debt. Debt conversion program, when we do a debt conversion program, our external debt will be reduced. It will be reduced. Another objective of debt conversion program is improvement of economic environment in order to attract foreign investment. Debt conversion program can attract more foreign investors to come to Nigeria to come and invest. Why? Because if you tell them that you borrow us money, you can become an equity holder, shareholders in our company, in our industry. Take for instance now, some country or some financial institution, international financial, borrow Nigeria construct a new refinery. They will be generating revenue from that refinery. The refinery is not for charitable purpose. It's not you understand? They will be generating revenue. So the investor that borrow Nigeria money, a share will be allocated to them, an equity will be allocated to them. So it will attract more investors. They will be willing to come to Nigeria because they will see that debt as an investment. Another one, Debt conversion programs serve as an additional incentive to prevent capital flight. How? Capital will not be moved out. Fund will not be out of Nigeria. The fund will still be circulating in Nigeria when we do a debt conversion program. If you do a debt for debt, if you do a debt for equity, if you do a debt for export, money will not be, fund will not be out of Nigeria. There will not be capital flight means you are taking funds, especially the multinational company. They are moving their funds out of Nigeria economy. They are moving their investment out of Nigeria economy. That is capital flights, prevention of capital flights. Another advantage of debt conversion program is stimulating employment opportunity. More employment, there will be more employment. When government borrowed money to establish a railway system, when foreigners come and be an investors, more people, more Nigeria will get job. When government borrowed money to ensure that we have more exports, so as a result of more exportation, more Nigeria will get job. So it stimulates employment opportunities. Another one is encouragement of creation and development of export-oriented industries. It will develop export-oriented industry when we do that for exports. By exporting our goods to exchange our debt obligations, it will develop export-oriented. We'll be more export-oriented. Assuming Nigeria is an export-oriented like Chinese, what we won't feel the impact of dollar. We won't feel the impact of dollar. Look at Chinese government, China. Look at rate of exchange of their own local currency with dollar. You understand? Their own local currency match dollar because they produce more, they export more, But now, Nigeria, even in Africa, our currency now, our Naira is the most useless currency. Is the most depreciated currency in Nigeria. In the Africa now. Togo Naira, Togo money is better than Nigeria. Benin Republic money now is better than Nigeria. Ghana is most of it. And we call ourselves giant of Africa. So it's just a slap on Nigeria that look at the number of experts we have in Nigeria. Look at the number of professors of economics we have in Nigeria. Look at the number of investment bankers we have in Nigeria. They can provide a lasting solution to this consistent depreciation in Naira. Because every day now, Naira is just depreciating. Like I always said, we are all feeling the impact. Everybody is feeling the impact now. Everybody is feeling the impact. It will get to a time, somebody earning 200,000, 300,000 will not be able to survive within a month. They will not be able to survive within a month because the rate of inflation now, the prices of goods and services is just going up. Because I don't blame them. Most of what they are using, they are being imported. So dollar affects it. So, like we said, even the issue of removal of subsidy, some school of thought believe that if you want to remove subsidy, you have to provide an alternative means of surviving. You have to put some palliative measure in place. But one of the major mistakes that Nigeria president did is announcement of removal of subsidy. is what is affecting us now. There have to be a plan for removal of subsidies. It's not just something that you just remove and you said, remove it. It has to go. What plan do you put in place? No plan. No plan. No plan is being put in place. Is being put in place. Is what is affecting us now. So those are the objectives of debt conversion program. Now, let's look at problem of debt conversion program. What problem does debt conversion program has? Number one is debt conversion program can lead to inflation or exchange rate pressures. Yeah, that is number one problem. Another one, debt conversion program offer opportunity for round-tripping transaction. Debt conversion program offer opportunity for what? Round-tripping transaction. What do we mean by round-tripping transaction? You are moving something out of the door. You carry your television, you move it out of the door. You now go back at the back of your window to put back the television. It's round-tripping transaction. The television is still within your room. You understand? It's still within the parlor. You understand? You take it out so that people can see that you move it out. You went back through your window, you put it back. It's a round-tripping transaction. So in relation to public debt, how does round-tripping transaction happen? Round-tripping transaction happen to debt for exports. Nigeria want to exchange their exports, their natural resources with debt, like crude oil, because they don't want to pay their debt in dollar. Do you understand? Because they don't want to pay in dollar. Now, by the time they say the IMF collect the crude oil, they'll go and refine the crude oil. The crude oil will become a refinery product, PMS, diesel, this and this. Who is going to buy it again? It's Nigeria. We are going to import it back to Nigeria. So which currency are you going to use to buy it? You are going to use dollar, buy it again. So that is round-tripping transaction. You, at the end of the day, you still pay that dollar. You still be looking for that dollar that you want to reduce through debt conversion program. So that is round-tripping transaction. So fear of foreign dominations. There may be changes in structure of business ownership in favor of foreigner. This one simply means fear of foreign domination. So one of the problem of
Yes, sir.
okay.
Yes, sir.
So one of the problems of debt conversion that we also have is fear of foreign domination. Debt conversion tend to increase fear about possible radical changes in structure of business ownership in favor of foreigner. The fear is that most of our business, most of our company, most of our industry in Nigeria, if we do a debt conversion program like debt for equity swap, most of our businesses in Nigeria will be dominated by foreigner. And if our business is dominated by foreigner will now be the one to be controlling our economy because they have dominated our industry already. So one of the problem of debt conversion is if you do a debt for equity swap, there may be foreigner may take over your economy through business ownership. Do you understand? Foreigner, they may take up the economy through what? Business ownership. So those are the problems of debt conversions. Now, debt management strategies. Debt management strategies. What do we understand by debt management strategies? Debt management strategy. Debt management refer as a policy measures designed primarily to contain debt ratio and ensure effective control on the volume of debt. Debt management strategy of federal government can be decomposed into two broad categories. We can break debt management strategy of government into two categories. Long-term debt management strategy. Long-term debt management strategy. So the long-term debt management strategy, they are commercialization, deregulation, liberalization, privatization, globalization. All these, they are long-term debt management techniques, debt management strategy. So the short-term debt management strategy, the short time. So all these long-term debt management strategy, some of them, they are called economic restructuring program. If a federal government want to do a long-term debt management strategy, so it's called economic restructure program. Economic restructure program. Privatization is an economic restructure program. Deregulation is an economic restructure program. Commercialization is an economic restructure program. Globalization is an economic restructure program. Now, what is the objective of this economic restructure program, which is objective of long-term debt management strategy? Number one is to reduce burden and attract net flow of foreign capital. Number two, adoption of realistic exchange rate policy. Reduction of complexity administrative control. Privatization and commercialization of public enterprise. All these are objective of long-term debt management strategy, which is otherwise called economic restructure program. Short-term debt management strategy. The short-term debt management strategies, they are the following: debt forgiveness, debt repudiation, ban on external loan. What is debt forgiveness? Debt forgiveness means this arises where the creditor's nation decided to forgive, to forget, or write off the debt of the debtor nation. The debtor approached the creditors. Oh, my creditors, I'm facing a lot of crisis. This money I'm owing you, I cannot pay. Please write it off for me. Forgo it for me. Pardon me. Nigeria, you understand? The debt, the creditors can say, okay, out of 20 million you are owing, go and pay 10 million. The balance of 10 million, are forgiving you. Or out of those, the 20 million I'm owing, everything, don't pay again. It can be full, it can be parts. Debt forgiveness can be full or parts. So when a debtors approach a creditors that, please, my creditors, let me write off my debt because of the crisis I'm facing. Take, for instance, now, Ukraine, they are facing a lot of war between Russia. If Ukraine borrow money from IMF, Ukraine, by this time now, IMF cannot expect Ukraine to be paying the loan because Ukraine is experiencing a crisis with Russia. They are fighting war with Russia. So, but for that, IMF can decide that because they are in support of Ukraine. You understand? You can say, okay, this debt you are owing us because we are in support of what you are fighting for. We write it off for you. A country facing a lot of tsunami, uh, because the economy don't have capacity to get funds that they will be paying the debt. Even they are even surviving on donations, donation from all other countries. They don't have a means of livelihood. They don't have revenue to pay to pay off the debt. So that is debt forgiveness. Debt forgiveness. So the next one is debt repudiation. Debt repudiation. What do we mean by debt repudiation? This simply means the debtor is refusing to pay the loan, the debt. He disowned the debt completely, that I'm not paying again. There's nothing you can do for me. That is debt repudiation. When the debtor's country disown the debt that they are owing. However, if any country do debt repudiation, there is possibility of sanction from IMF and World Bank. What will be the sanction? Such country will not have access to any external loan again. They will be on blacklist of international financial institution. All other financial creditors, the old creditors. Do you understand? So if any country go and do debt repudiation, they disown their debt, there may be possibility of sanction by IMF. You understand? The third one is a ban on external loan. This one is debt embargo. National Assembly, they make a law that for some number of years, in the next 5 years, so because our loan, the debt that Nigeria government have collected now is too much, and it's visible that we cannot pay it back within 30 years. National Assembly can pass a law. They can pass a bill that, okay, let's put embargo on our debt. I'm explaining this ban on external loan. It's also called the debt embargo. Let's put embargo on our debt, especially external debt. In the next 10 years, we have passed a law, we will not go and borrow external again, no matter what we face. We will not borrow again. We have to ensure that we pay off what we are owing, so that we will not be having a lot of debt on our head. And then we can put a law that there should be ban on external borrowing, ban on external loan. It's part of debt management too. It's part of debt management strategies too. Debt management strategy. So, ladies and gentlemen, those are the debt management strategy that we have. Number one is debt forgiveness. Number two is debt repudiation. Number three is ban on external loan. So another area that we need to look at is government domestic borrowing instruments. If government want to borrow money internally, what are the instruments that they use to borrow? So they are the internal borrowing loan. Number one, government domestic borrowing is Treasury bill. If government want to go and borrow money internally, they can borrow through Treasury bill by issuing out a Treasury bill. Who issue out Treasury bill on behalf of government? Central Bank. So Treasury bill means the security issued by government that is going to mature after 90 days. It's a short time security. It's after 90 days. This one is very short. After 90 days. After 90 days, assuming you subscribe for Treasury bill of 10,000, after 90 days, they may pay you like 95,000. So that 5,000 is an interest to you. Another domestic government domestic borrowing is treasury certificate. Treasury certificates too is one of the government securities issued by central bank on behalf of federal government. Do you understand? So this one, the difference between this one is this one matured. The maturity period of this one is from 1 year to 2 years. Any treasury bill that is going to mature from 1 to 2 years, any government security that is going to mature from 1 to 2 years is called treasury bill. It's called treasury bill, treasury certificate, sorry. 1 to 2 years is called treasury certificate. Another one that we have is FGN bonds. Bonds is normally a long-time security issued by government. It's a fixed, and it has a fixed interest. So bond, the maturity period of bond, 20 years, 30 years, and every year before it mature, the holder of that bond will be collecting a fixed interest. It can be 5% bond. 5% bond means 5% interest every year. So those are the bonds we have. We have federal government saving bonds. We have development stock. All these, they are domestic. We have Sukuk bonds. So this area of Sukuk bond, I want us to read it very well. Question can come out on it. So they may ask, what is the purpose of Sukuk bond? So diversing government sources of government funding construction or rehabilitation of key critical infrastructural projects like road, offering ethical investor an opportunity to invest. Sukuk bond simply means it's mostly for Muslims. Those Muslims that believe, we Muslims that believe that interest is around. So in these Sukuk bonds, they won't pay you interest. At the end of the day, they will pay you what is called profit from your investment. They will not pay you interest. They will pay you what is called profit from your investment. So it's also a government securities. So we can know the purpose of Sukuk bond. We can try to know the purpose of Sukuk bond. Please, let's take note of that area. It's very important. Purpose of Sukuk bond. So we also have a revenue bond. Revenue bond means those long-time bonds issued by government to finance a revenue generating project. From the project is where the government will pay back to the bondholder. So now another area that we should go, documentation for state government borrowing. Documentation for state government borrowing. If a state government want to borrow loan, what are those documents that is required? Documentation for state government borrowing. If a state government want to borrow loan, what are those documents that is required? Number one is profile of the state, showing population, major industries, profile of the state, showing population, major industry, and their location and major project embarked upon by the states. How? Take for instance, Lagos State want to go and borrow money through stock exchange. Profile of the state. Lagos State has a population of about 50 million. That is showing population. The major industry in Lagos State are Dangote Refinery, flour mill, which other one? So many other big industries in Lagos. What major projects as government Fourth Mainland Bridge? Those are the major projects. So profile of the state showing populations, major industries, and their location and other major projects embarked upon by the state. Those are the number one documents that will require for state government debt instrument. Number two is a profile of asset and liability of the state in the last 5 years. Lagos, they want to go and borrow the money. They must provide the asset and liability report. This is our asset. We have so many properties. We have so many investors. We have so many bosses. We have this. We invest in so many securities. Liability. These are the people we are owing in the last 5 years. So those are the number two. Number three, sources of revenue for the past 5 years. Sources of revenue for the past 5 years. The sources of revenue for the past 5 years. Where does Lagos State get revenue in the past 5 years? They will mention that. Number four, the law of the state authorizing the state or agency to borrow. This one is saying that the State House of Assembly must pass a law that they are giving government, the governor, go ahead to go and borrow money. If anybody give a state government money without approval of National Assembly, State House of Assembly, such loan, if another government come in, they may deny that. Approval of State House of Assembly before a governor can borrow money is very key. If a bank want to borrow government money, state government money, they must ask for approval of National Assembly, because the legislative arm, they are the one that shed the executive. Purpose of creating legislative arm is to ensure there is a check and balances in the running of affairs of government. So that's it. That feasibility reports of the project to be financed is also key. Evidence of federal government guarantee. If a state want to go and borrow money, they must collect a letter from federal government that they are guaranteeing that this state can be able to pay the loan they want to borrow. So federal government must be aware if any state want to go and borrow money. They must give them a letter of guarantee that they guarantee that this state can pay the loan. Another one, a letter of authority from the state government to the CBN or Accountant General of the Federation to permit direct deduction of both principal and interest from statutory allocation. Every month, federal government normally pay every state what is called statutory allocation coming from Federation account. So what this one is saying that if any state want to go and borrow, they will give, is just like a post-dated check. This letter of authority is just like a post-dated check. In case that state fail to pay the loan, federal government has a power to deduct it from that state share of statutory allocation coming from Federation accounts. So it's very key. It's very key. So that is letter of authorities. So that is that. Problem facing states government in financing project through capital market. If a state government want to go and get money from capital market, what are the problems facing them? Poor accounting system of the part of the state. Some states government, they don't have a good accounting system. They don't prepare financial statements. They don't do the financial statement is not well detailed. I'm not referring to Lagos. I'm not referring to Lagos follow, why others Lagos first, why other states follow. But there are some states in Nigeria that I can mention. They don't have a good accounting system. Another one is lack of qualified personnel. Some states, the accounting staff, they are not qualified enough. Some of those who are giving accountant general, some of them may not even have professional qualifications in the states. So another one, poor performance of existing state government projects act as a disincentive to potential investors. People who want to borrow you money, they will look at the project you have embarked upon in the states in the past. If the project is good, they can borrow you money. But if they see that there is no meaningful project this state have embarked upon in the past, it will discourage them to borrow you money. Another one is inability of government to package or market viable projects. So those are the problems faced by the state government why they want to borrow money from capital markets. Now, the next area that we need to go is the area of debt management office. All the debts collected by federal government and state government, there are some agencies that keep record of it and that advise government on how they will repay. This agency is called Debt Management Office. This agency also ensures that they are able to look for where government can get money at a least cost, which international financial institution can give government money at the lowest rate of interest. It's the job of this debt management office. So, function of debt management office. Function of debt management office. Number one function of debt management office, to issue and manage federal government loan publicly issued in Nigeria. Number two is to issue guidelines for smooth operation of debt conversion program. To issue guidelines for smooth operations of debt conversion program of the federal government. Another function or powers of debt management, to do such thing in the opinion of the board relating to management of external debt of the federal government. So now let's look at the function of debt management office. The function of debt management office. What are the functions of debt management office? Number one function of debt management office is to maintain a reliable database of all loan taken or guaranteed by federal government or state government. If you want to look at the total loan, the total debt owed by the federal government, who can give us the amount? In the debt management office. If any financial institution want to borrow a state money, the first contact that financial institution will go and do background check of that state is to go to debt management office. The debt management office will tell the financial institution, this state, oh, you want to borrow money, this is what they are owing now. This is where they have borrowed money in the past. This is their debt history. So maintain a reliable database of all loans taken or guaranteed by federal government or state government. Another function, prepare and submit to federal government a focused loan service obligation for each financial year. They help federal government to prepare their focused loan service, how they are going to pay their loan, the loan that they are owing, how they are going to service it in each of the year. They are the one that do that, is debt management office. Another one, verify and service external debt guarantee or taken by federal government. Another one, set guideline for managing federal government financial risk and currency exposure with respect to all loans. Why the next one is advise federal government on restructuring, refinancing of all debt obligations. Advise federal government on restructuring, refinancing of all debt obligations. Another function is to submit for federal government for consideration in annual budget a forecast of borrowing capacity in local and foreign currency. So, ladies and gentlemen, please let's try to note down at least 5 functions of debt management office. This topic we are discussing, public debt, is one of the important topics in public sector accounting. Every diet question on public debt normally come out. So we need to take note of it. Do you understand? At least 20 mark question will come out from this the topic. 20 mark question will come out from this topic. So please, let's take note of this very well. Public debt is very important. It's very important. If you review past question of PSAP, public sector accounting, you will see there is no diet question will not come out on public debt. Question must come out on public debt. So is the head, is the lifeline of PSAP, public sector accounting, is the lifeline of it. So please, let's note this topic very well. Public debt is very, very important. It's very, very important. So the area we also need to discuss is indicator of external debt burden. How do we measure external debt? How do we measure external debt? We can measure external debt with 4 ratios. Ratio 1 is external debt to export ratio. Ratio 2 is external debt stock to export ratio. While ratio 3 is external debt stock to gross domestic products ratio. While ratio 4 is external debt services to nominal gross domestic product ratio. Those are the measurement of debt ratio. Those are the measurement of debt ratio. So measurement of debt ratio, can measure debt ratio in 4 ways. Number 1 is external debt service to export ratio. Number 2 is external debt stock to export ratio. While number 3 is external debt stock to nominal gross domestic product ratio. While number 4 is external debt service to nominal gross domestic product ratio. So this is all what we have on the public debt. This is all what we have on public debt. This is all what we have on public debt. So in case you have any question, any reservation, any observation, you can raise, let us know. So back to the class. If you have any question, any reserve, any clarification, please let us know.
Thank you very much, sir, for the lecture delivery. How functional is this debt management office in Nigeria?
How
functional?
How functional of what?
I mean, how functional is this debt management office in Nigeria?
Their function, when you are familiar with Nigeria debt very well, Nigeria debt, they use such one of or two techniques of this technique we just mentioned to manage their debt. If you are reading newspaper very well, it is function. But the problem that we have in Nigeria is we practice it, we don't ensure effectiveness of it. Do you understand? We don't ensure effectiveness of it. All this management strategy we talk is going to be managed by the people. If those who are working in debt management office, they are not practicing these techniques very well, it won't yield any positive results. You understand how government in the ministries work, how government works. Because of their own personal benefits, they will rather to delay things. So that is it. Any other question? Yeah, you are welcome. Any other question? Please, this topic, like I said, this is my material on public debt. Read it very well. I'm giving you that guarantee. At least 20 mark question will come out here. So I take my time to do a lot of research on this topic.
Please, can you assist to go back on the round tripping? The round tripping. Yes, yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much. What is the meaning of round tripping? It's under debt conversion. It's a problem of debt conversion program. It's a problem of debt conversion program. Round tripping simply means a situation whereby you take, for instance, you understand sales and leaseback lease. You sell an asset, you sell a building, you own a building, you now sell it. When you sell it, you now lease it back from the new buyer. It's a round-tripping transaction. It's a round-tripping transaction. So in the case of a public debt, round-tripping transaction means that export, Nigeria want to use natural resources, crude oil, to exchange their debt. By the time they give the creditors the crude oil, there's no fund is not going out. Capital is not going out of Nigeria economy. We are not paying in dollar. We have paid through crude oil. But at the end of the day, Nigeria don't have refinery. These are our creditors. They will go and refine the crude oil. They will now do what?
Okay.
Import it back to where?
Sell it back to
Nigeria. So if Nigeria want to buy it back, are they going to buy in naira?
no.
They will buy it in dollar. So it's a round-tripping transaction. We are trying to ensure that we don't have a foreign exchange rate crisis. But we are now doing exports to exchange. At the end of the day, we still face that problem.
Yeah. Okay.
Do we understand?
Yes, yes. Yeah.
Okay. So, which other move? So, please, this topic is very important. At least 20 mark or 25 mark. If you review past questions very well, it's normally come out. Especially this area called factor responsible for public debt. Like I said last week, they can ask reason for public debt or objective of public debt. Is still referring to factor responsible for public debt. You understand? They can ask what are the reasons for increase in government borrowing. They are still referring to all these factors: exchange rate movement, increase in population, balance of payment deficit, persistent budget debt. So please, let's know this area very well. Let's know at least 7 points here that we can develop. Do you understand? Again, benefit of public debt or advantage of public debt. Let's know at least 5 points. DS2 is an important area. Why problem of the public debt too, or challenges of public debt? Let's know 5.2. So public debt in PSAP, I always tell my students, if you want to pass PSAP very well, focus, look at the trends. Do you understand? For the last 10 diets now, there is no diet question will not come out from public debt. So PSAP syllabus is very broad. But when you plan yourself very well, you can get 90 over 100. You can get 80 over 100, 70 over 100. One of the means of planning yourself very well is for you to understand most of the topic that they normally set. ICANN don't use public debt to joke. Likewise to budgeting and budgetary control. They don't use it to joke. But they value public debt most. They value public debt most. So I will advise us, let's be reading this topic every day, every week. Let's try to open this topic of public debt every week. So if we are in the exam, our number one question should be this on public debt. Because we know that it's going to come out. And the area that is going to come out is within this material. When we answer that very well, we encourage the examiner that we know what we are doing. So please, let's try to note this topic very well. So any observation, any query? So in the absence of no observation, no query. So we can call the class a day. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.